Alright y'all, welcome back to Combat Arms channel. Now I've had this video requested to me by a few of my viewers, and I've watched this video a couple months ago, but at the time it didn't have any commentary on it, so I didn't really understand the whole background of the situation itself. I was able to read up on it briefly, but I guess the video, someone has added commentary to the video, and it gives a much better explanation as to what's going on and the background for everything. Now, I haven't seen the video in its entirety with the commentary. I've seen a couple of clips from reaction videos and whatnot, and I've cut it short just because I didn't want to see the entire video. But I will say that this video is pretty hard to watch, especially if you've been in the military, if you've been to combat, or even if you're anyone who's in combat arms. You can really start to understand and wrap your mind around what's going on and why someone would do something like that. Even for people who aren't in the military, if they have family members or what have you, anyone who's been to combat, and they're really trying to understand, what someone might have gone through, or the mindset that someone actually has when they're going to a situation like that. It's really hard to wrap your mind around it, and with a video like this being the first Medal of Honor ever recorded, it's even harder. It's definitely more towards the extreme side of what you would see, someone doing out there. But to actually see it, you read up on Medal of Honors, you hear the citations, and you hear stories, but to see it actually happening and see it actually unfolding is a whole nother thing, and it makes it so much harder to take in. It is hard to watch, so I'll just say that before we actually get into the video.
Chapman, a U.S. Air Force combat controller, and the SEALs are attempting to rescue their lost teammate. You'll watch Chapman's heroic actions as he saves the lives of his entire SEAL team and then another 18 members of a quick reaction force, earning America's highest award, the Medal of Honor. Chapman and the SEALs exfil their MH-47 helicopter. John is the second individual to exit and immediately moves in the direction of the summit. He can be seen moving off to the right of the screen, alone. The team is taking heavy fire from every direction, as indicated by the arrows, as Chapman begins engaging targets. You can see spent cartridges ejecting from his M4. Chapman then begins closing with the enemy, forcing his way upslope in knee and thigh-deep snow. He is constantly under fire as he does this.
Okay, so again, trying to wrap your mind around combat, or someone being in a place like this, it's sort of hard to do, especially if you're not, again, in the military. But now picture it nighttime when there's thigh deep snow and you're being shot at. For someone to even wrap their mind around what's going on, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for you to think straight at all. But for you to get so much focus because you're in so much danger, it's even harder to understand. For someone to push an assault when all this is happening, a lot of people wouldn't even try and comprehend what that would actually take. And it allows you to have a little more respect and appreciation for what's actually going on.
Chapman's team leader begins to close on Chapman, following his trail through the snow. The dark mass above Chapman is a fortified bunker containing 2 enemy fighters, each armed with AK-47s, who are firing down on the team in the darkness. This bunker will come to be known as Bunker Number 1. To the left of the tree and Bunker 1 is another gray mass. This is a rock outcropping that came to be called the Boulder. Between Bunker 1 and this boulder can be seen the body of slain SEAL Neil Roberts, the man Chapman and the others are attempting to recover. Chapman, still alone and closest to the enemy, pauses to engage targets as his team leader follows him, but never actually catches up with him. Chapman, on his own, now makes the decision to charge directly into the enemy bunker, despite withering point-blank fire. Chapman, now literally on top of the enemy, engages the 2 combatants and kills them, saving the lives of the remaining SEALs. He does this from a distance of no more than 10 feet. These actions by themselves earned him his first Medal of Honor. He then climbs into and takes control of the bunker. Having cleared the immediate threat, Chapman is then joined by his team leader in Bunker 1. You can then see Chapman and his team leader engaging the next bunker, known as Bunker 2, which is situated to the left edge of the screen.
Jeez.
This bunker, manned by a handful of Chechen and Uzbek fighters, also contains a heavy PKM machine gun, hand grenades, and rocket-propelled grenades. John Chapman is shot twice at this time in the torso and collapses, incapacitated.
And to think of what his team members were actually thinking of and what they were going through too, it was rough for everyone. You have certain people doing certain things, but the fact of the matter is, no one would be capable of handling this. Humans aren't capable of taking all this violence in and reacting naturally to it. It's not something that you're designed to do. When there's this much violence, this much uncertainty, we're all about self-preservation at the end of the day. But when you're weighing the pros and cons, or you're weighing this against that, when you're weighing your brother's lives against your own, people do incredible things that you wouldn't even think about. And again, you hear these stories and you can read about this and whatnot, but to actually see it unfolding is, it gives you a much better appreciation for everything.
You are now looking at a new angle, and at the left of the screen can be seen the two-man fire team and team leader on top of the boulder. Just below it is Bunker 1 with the mortally wounded Chapman. One SEAL can be seen firing his modified M60 machine gun from the hip into Bunker 2 on the right side of the screen until he is struck by grenade shrapnel and tumbles 10 feet off the top of the boulder, collapsing at the feet of his team leader, thus setting off a chain of events that would lead to the SEALs abandoning Chapman on the summit. The wounded SEAL and the team leader can be seen conferring about his injuries. Moments later, the SEALs decide to retreat from the summit because their position is untenable in the face of continued massive enemy firepower. They can be seen moving toward the right side of the screen and passing the body of Neil Roberts. Unfortunately, the SEALs do not pass John Chapman, who is above them and inside Bunker 1. This angle shows 3 SEALs in a triangle. The larger black heat signature is a smoke grenade. Just to its left is a donkey and dead Al-Qaeda fighter killed by Chapman. The steepness of the mountain can be seen as the SEALs begin to slide down the near sheer face.
Jeez.
The team leader, desperate for relief and now with 2 wounded teammates, asks for uncontrolled airstrikes from an orbiting Air Force AC-130 gunship. The impacts you see are from 105mm howitzer rounds being fired onto the ridgetop in order to save the remaining SEALs. Because neither the SEALs nor gunship know Chapman is alive, he is experiencing these detonations from his position. At approximately 5:20 in the morning, Chapman recovers and begins to engage the enemy. Bunker 1 is on the right side center of the screen and Bunker 2 to the left near the screen center. It will never be known what caused his incapacitation and recovery. Of the 2 rounds that originally wounded him, at least 1 was mortal, and at this time he is experiencing severe blood loss and shock. Despite that, he begins his one-man stand against 24 enemy combatants. During this time, Chapman initiates a series of radio calls, many of which are heard by a fellow combat controller and teammate of his and Delta Force operators on a nearby summit. Despite this combat controller's replies, Chapman never acknowledges whether because of damage to his equipment or himself will never be known. This new angle and footage shows Chapman at the top, identified by the green dot under the tree at Bunker 1. The lower center of the screen shows the first enemy fighter who is about to charge Chapman in the hopes of killing the American. The timestamp at the bottom shows it is now 6:05 in the morning and fully light. He's been fighting alone now for 40 plus minutes and has received more gunshot and shrapnel wounds as a result of the fierce combat. This scene shows the second of several enemy charges. In this stunning display of determination and courage, Chapman can be seen fighting hand to hand with the fighter. In the larger screen display can be seen additional enemy moving on to the summit. But right now, John Chapman is fighting for his life.
Again, you can't expect a human being to take this much damage and continue to push the fight like that. Like, for you to do hand-to-hand combat for your life is one thing, but for you to do it while you're mortally wounded, it takes some determination to fuel someone to be able to do that. And again, there's the mentality of, you know, I'm going to keep pushing, I'm going to keep doing this just to make sure that my brothers are able to get out of here. You know, it's one thing for you to risk your life one time, as he did when he was rushing the bunker initially. But for you to do it over and over again, it's hard to wrap your mind around, okay, I'm not going to be going home, and I'm okay with that because, you know, I can sacrifice myself to make sure that one of my brothers actually goes home. And again, you can try and wrap your mind around that, but for a human being to make that decision, especially in such a violent situation, you can't even begin to imagine, I mean, what someone actually thinks, what their thoughts actually are. It might just be autopilot for someone to do that, but you know, there has to be that little thing that comes up, that red flag that comes up about self-preservation. But for you to immediately go against that, it's something that a lot of us can never really understand.
6 minutes later, in this new shot, Chapman can hear another helicopter approaching the summit. He is in the bottom center of the screen underneath the tree and can be seen in the magnified inset box as he begins his desperate final stand to save the lives of the 18 men on the helicopter. The red dots are enemy fighters. John begins engaging the enemy in multiple directions and is rapidly approaching the last of his ammunition. The helicopter contains a quick reaction force comprised of Rangers, pararescuemen, and another combat controller. It is now 6:13 and the helicopter is short final. The enemy is desperately trying to displace Chapman so they can put heavy weapons or rocket-propelled grenades in Bunker 1 while simultaneously engaging the helicopter. With the choice to save his life or the lives of his unknown comrades, Chapman makes the decision to climb out of the bunker and begin firing in multiple directions, as can be seen in the inset. Suffering from as many as a dozen wounds, Chapman is in fact already in the process of dying. As he fights, the helicopter is struck by a rocket-propelled grenade and makes a remarkable controlled crash just below Chapman and the summit. Chapman, now off-screen, continues to cover his comrades as they pour out of the stricken helicopter. Some of them are fatally shot as they exit. These images, with Chapman fighting the enemy at close quarter, are the last to show him alive and in this heroic act, thus qualifying for his second Medal of Honor. Ultimately, Chapman would expend all but the last few rounds of his ammunition, until, finally, after 16 bullet and shrapnel wounds, Chapman succumbs when he is shot through the heart. We will never know his final thoughts or words, but what we do know is his decisions and actions single-handedly saved the lives of 23 comrades. For more information about John Chapman's amazing story and the details about this mission, visit danschillingbooks.com or your favorite book retailer to obtain a copy of the Chronicle of his life, Alone at Dawn.
Again, that is so hard to watch. Especially someone who, going to combat, being combat arms, someone who's able to put their self in that person's shoes. It's like terrifying, one, just to be in that situation, but it's also terrifying for someone who grows up in the military and grows up with that brotherhood. It's terrifying knowing that you have to be that person to do these things. You know, it's either you don't do it and you know you risk your guys being in a lot of trouble or more trouble than they would be, or it's you taking upon yourself to understand, hey, I might not be coming home after this, but at least I give my guys a better chance of getting back. And to think about that, and to try and understand it again. You can try and think of like, what sort of, you can hope that they're just going through like an autopilot doing this, but again, those thoughts are coming up, and for you to just push it to the side and continue pushing the fight that long, to the point where he was injured. He was shot several times. He was hit by shrapnel and whatnot. It took him getting shot in the heart to stop this, to stop the fight. And you can be mortally wounded one time, and that's it. You're not going to want to fight anymore. You can be in that situation and not be wounded, and it's going to be hard for you to want to put yourself further in that situation, or for you to get injured and then push it and then get injured even more. You're digging yourself into this hole with the understanding that you're not going to be getting out of it. And yeah, it's so rough to actually see it happening like this. And yeah, it's brutal and it's violent, but at the same time, it's a record, and it's a recording of what he did and who he was as a person. And again, you can try and understand it, but for you to actually see someone doing this, for you to actually see all the violence and the story as it's unfolding, is a whole nother thing. And when someone thinks of a hero, their definition might be different, but no one can argue that this man wasn't a hero. Again, for him to put himself in that position and dig himself further and further in that hole to make sure his brothers get out of there, to make sure his buddies would be able to go home back to their families, and for him to sacrifice all of that, like that is the definition of a hero. And now we have a recording of what he did, and again, it really it allows us to honor him a lot better. As rough as it is to watch it, it is a good thing to be able to do that. But yeah, again, let me know what y'all think of the video. I know it's rough, but if you've been in the military, or if you know someone who's been to combat, you might understand how it's hard to try and wrap your mind around certain things. It's hard to think of why someone might do something like this, why someone would be willing to put themselves in this situation. It's because they know that there's people in that situation. Their brothers and sisters are in these situations, and they're willing to put themselves in that situation. Even worse, even to like a more extreme point, just to make sure that they're able to get out of there. And you have to respect that mindset. You have to appreciate that. But definitely feel free to share your thoughts on this video, and what it actually made you feel. If you got a better appreciation for either the military or these sacrifices, just let me know what you think. I'd be interested in reading up on it. But I hope you guys were able to get something out of it. I know I definitely did. It really humbles you and gives you appreciation for certain things. But yeah, that's it for this video, so I'll see you on the next one.